In the dense, fog-choked woods of Connecticut, there is a place where the map goes blank and the air feels heavy with the weight of 300 years of silence. It is called Dudleytown, the village of the damned. While most ghost stories are built on campfire myths, the history of Dudleytown is documented in land deeds, death certificates, and the frantic letters of men who went mad trying to tame a patch of earth that seemingly refused to let anyone live. This is not just a story of a haunting. It is a historical chronicle of a lineage that brought a curse from the executioner's block in Tudor England to the rugged frontier of the American colonies. The roots of the Dudleytown mystery do not begin in America, but in the bloody courts of King Henry VIII. The Dudley family was one of the most powerful and most ill-fated dynasties in English history. It began with John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland, who attempted to seize the English throne by plotting to install his daughter-in-law, Lady Jane Grey. The coup failed. John Dudley was beheaded in 1553, but not before he reportedly leveled a dying curse upon his lineage, claiming they would forever be hunted by shadows. His son, Lord Guilford Dudley, was also executed. Another son, the Earl of Leicester, lived in constant scandal and saw his heirs die young. By the time the mid-1700s arrived, the remaining Dudleys were looking for a fresh start, far away from the ancestral trauma of the British Isles. They sought the New World, hoping that the vast, untamed wilderness of the American colonies would provide a sanctuary where the name Dudley carried no weight. In 1747, Gideon Dudley arrived in the Cornwall Mountains of Connecticut. The terrain was brutal, a high, dark plateau surrounded by three peaks, Bald Mountain, Woodbury Mountain, and the Coltsfoot Range. Because of the topography, the valley sat in a perpetual shadow, receiving hours less sunlight than the surrounding plains. Gideon and his brothers, Barzillai and Abiel, saw potential in the thick timber and iron ore. They cleared the land, built stone foundations, and officially established Dudleytown. But the sanctuary quickly turned into a crucible. The first sign that something was deeply wrong came not from ghosts, but from a series of inexplicable tragedies that defied the statistical norms of colonial life. While life in the 18th century was undoubtedly hard, the sheer concentration of calamity in Dudleytown was staggering. Shortly after the town was settled, Abiel Dudley, who had been a hard-working and robust man, suddenly lost his senses. He began screaming at unseen figures in the woods and eventually died in a state of total mental collapse, penniless and alone. Then came the case of Nathaniel Carter. In 1763, Carter moved his family into a house formerly owned by a Dudley. Within months, a mysterious plague swept through his home, killing several family members. Distraught, Carter moved the survivors to the New York frontier, hoping to escape the bad luck of the valley. Instead, his new home was attacked. Carter and his wife were killed, and their children were kidnapped and taken to Canada.
By the time the American Revolution broke out, Dudleytown was gaining a reputation as a place of ill omen. However, the most famous incident occurred during the post-war years, involving General Heman Swift. Swift was a hero of the Revolution and a personal friend of George Washington. He was a man of logic and iron will. In 1804, his wife, Sarah Fay, was standing on their porch during a summer storm when she was struck by a bolt of lightning and killed instantly. The general, a man who had survived the horrors of Valley Forge, could not survive the grief of Dudleytown. He descended into a permanent state of dementia, claiming that demons were whispering to him from the dark tree line of the mountains until his death. As the 19th century progressed, the town began to physically wither. The soil, once thought to be rich, was found to be rocky and acidic, making farming nearly impossible. But it wasn't just the economy that was failing. it was the people. One of the most chilling accounts involves a resident named Horace Greeley, not the famous editor, though a relative. Greeley's wife, Mary, began telling neighbors about monstrous birds with human-like faces that perched on their roof at night. Horace dismissed it as cabin fever. A week later, he returned from a trip to find Mary had hanged herself in the barn. There was no note, only the scratches of fingernails on the wooden beams. By the late 1800s, Dudleytown was becoming a ghost town. The residents who remained were described by outsiders as hollow-eyed and strangely silent. The last true resident of the original settlement was a man named John Patrick Brophy. His story provides the final tragic exclamation point on the town's history. In quick succession, Brophy's wife died of a sudden, undiagnosed illness. Shortly after her funeral, his 2 children vanished into the woods and were never found. Finally, Brophy's house burned to the ground in a fire that had no clear origin. Brophy himself disappeared into the night, leaving behind nothing but the charred ruins of a life. By